All right, kiddos, head for the hills. Get out of here. Kid. Wow, that was not many people here today. Hey, let's go to Philippians. Let's go. Y'all gotta get some life here. So, I'm telling you, I feel like I'm way back here. So, that's okay. Philippians 1. I'll start up here. I will probably make my way down there. So, is that all right, Hunter? No? I gotta stay here? I feel like I'm at the border. Jump across. Philippians 1. Let's talk Philippians. All right? Is it the book of the Philippians? Is it book of Philippians? Thank you, the letter. Appreciate that. All right? Because here's the cool thing. Don't you realize you guys have a copy of a first century letter from the greatest apostle that Christ had to the Greco-Roman world, to this beautiful church in the city of Philippi. You have a copy of this letter, and you can read it anytime you want to. Can you imagine if you went out there and you went to this auction house and said, I have a letter from St. Paul to the church in Philippi from the first century? People would go nuts trying to buy that thing, right? And we all have copies of these things that we can read over and over and over, but yet we don't. And the letter to the Philippians, it would take you like 10 minutes to read, okay? So take advantage of this. See the Bible for what it is. Quit calling it the book of this and the book of that and the book of that, all right? Just be deliberate in your language. It'll change the way you read things, all right? So these Philippians, let's talk about them, how we get to them, all right? Paul goes on his first missionary journey, goes around, gets stoned with rocks, comes back, all right? We have the Jerusalem Council. We set the bar of, okay, here's what future Gentile Christians need to do, don't need to do, all that kind of stuff. Paul's like, let's go again, all right? He wants to go, goes back sort of the first little track, and then God goes, no, you can't go to Ephesus. And he goes, okay, I'll go up here. He goes, no, you can't go to Bithynia. So I think he goes to Troas, and he's just going to catch a boat from Troas back around to Syrian Antioch and go back and start all over again, all right? When he gets to Troas, he gets what we refer to as the Macedonian call, okay? So Paul has a vision of a man from Macedonia. Now you need to understand, Asia, which is modern-day Turkey today, and Greece did not get along, okay? So if you were from Asia, modern-day Turkey, you didn't go over to Greece, okay? Because these were Greeks, these were all the other tribes, okay? And so this Macedonian man calls to him and says, Paul, come over here and help us. And Paul's like, all right, let's go. All right, we're right here in Troas. Let's just go across, and we'll go spend some time there. Paul helps to convert Lydia, the seller of purple. All right, the slave girl who's telling everybody's fortunes. He casts the demons out of her. Now she's no use to her masters. So not only do they get rid of her, but they arrest Paul. He's in prison that night, singing, praising, all this stuff. And what happens? The earthquake happens. The jailer thinks everybody's gone. He pulls out his knife. He's going to kill himself. Paul goes, hey, wait, we're all here. And the jailer's like, okay, what you got? Because you got something I ain't got. And that night, his whole family gets saved with the gospel of Christ that Paul is just telling people over and over. And I think this forms the foundation of the Philippian church. You got Lydia, the wealthy owner, the dress shop, the fabric shop, all that stuff, all right? You got this slave girl who has nothing and now has no ability to do the fortune-telling thing, all right? And then you've got this jailer who was probably a former Roman soldier, probably a high-up, maybe non-com officer kind of a thing. And this creates sort of the foundation of the Philippian church, okay? Now, Paul is going to go finish up his second missionary journey, come back, and he goes to Ephesus on the third missionary journey. And he goes, okay, I'm going to leave Ephesus here, and he spends 3 years. I'm going to leave here. I'm going to go to Corinth, and then I'm going to go up to Macedonia or Philippi and visit you guys sort of on a track, and then I'm going to head back home. Well, he ends up going to Philippi first, all right, which is sort of controversial in the letter to the Corinthians, but that's okay, all right? He goes there, then he goes down to Corinth, and he's about to catch a ride back home to Syrian Antioch, and he discovers a plot to kill him. So he goes, never mind, won't go back that way. Let's just double back. So where does he do? He goes back to Philippi. Why does he keep going back to Philippi? He doesn't go back to these others. He goes back to Corinth because they're so screwed up, right? All right, that's a messed up church right there, okay? He feels the need to go there. Why does he go to Philippi? Because they take care of him there. What does he say? What does he tell the Corinthians? That the Macedonian church can't wait to give. Can't wait for the first Sunday of the month to give their tithes and offerings, all right? Can't wait to this. The whole reason for this letter is a thank you letter back to the Philippians for the gift that he receives, and we'll see that in Philippians 4, all right? Even after his imprisonment in Rome, the first time he's in prison, he leaves Rome and goes back to Philippi. Why? This is his people, all right? And he discusses this in the first part of the first chapter. He says, my every remembrance, I thank God for you, and my every remembrance of you. You guys are my partners. We're in this together, and I know we're in this together. He doesn't write that to the Ephesian church, even though he had spent 3 years with them, all right? But he writes it to the Philippian church. And he says, you know what? I need you to know, here's what's happening to me. I'm in prison in Rome, but it's all good. You know why? Because these Praetorian guards that keep coming in, they keep hearing the gospel. And they go back and they tell everybody about the gospel. And people are gaining confidence from what they're hearing and seeing in me while I'm in prison. And the gospel is going out. And there's even people that are sharing the gospel trying to hurt me. And he's like, score. You know why? Because they're hearing the gospel, okay? So Paul has this value to the gospel that it is inestimable to him. It is absolutely priceless to him, okay? And here's what we have in our culture, okay? We have people who have a cultural belief in God, and then we have a small sliver, narrow door kind of group that knows what the gospel of Jesus Christ is. And these two groups live vastly different lives. Amen? Or they should. This is so far out of the ordinary. All right? I was trying to think. I was talking with Caden yesterday on the phone. I was like, okay, I got to get a good illustration for this. And we were kind of working through this. And I said, you know what? In Chicago, they have a basketball team, right? What? A little one. Okay, but it used to be really good, didn't it? But what if all you knew was, well, I believe there's a basketball team in Chicago. And somebody comes up and you goes, you a big Jordan fan? And you go, who's that? Some of you all don't get sports analogies. I get that. I see the blank stare on your face going, I know, seriously, who is Jordan? All right? I'm sorry. I can't help you any more than that, okay? So what if there's a football team in New England? Someone goes, you a big Brady fan? Who's that? Maybe you're just a good American. They go, oh, the stories about George Washington, all that. Nah, got nothing. That's what it's like to be a person who has a generic belief in this cosmic entity and doesn't know the story of Jesus, the gospel message. And this is what Paul just wants to tell everybody about. And he says, even to the fact of what? For me to live is Christ. If my heart is beating, somebody's going to hear the gospel because it so overwhelms me. I've said this many times. We have the logos, the pathos, and the ethos. Logos is what you know. Do you know the story of Christ? Do you know the full story with the prophets coming in saying he's going to be born here and this and that and this, and then he does all this, and he's raised from the dead, and he's sitting by the Father making intercessions for us today? Do you know that logos? If you do, it should affect your pathos, your emotions, your response. There should be something there. And then your ethos, your ethic, should be profoundly different from the person whose their whole logos is, I think there's a God. Yeah, I think there's a God. Right? Because that person who just thinks there's a God has what kind of ethic? What is their ethic? I think there's a God. Well, what's your emotional reaction to that? Yep, he's still alive. Barely, but what's your ethic? Be nice. Please tell me you have more of an ethical calling on your life than being nice.